Hi, this is David with David's Tutorials, and in today's video and vlog number 3, I'd like to talk to you about dogs. Now, you've heard that dogs are man's best friend, and if you've ever been around dogs much, then you know this is true to a certain extent. And I have nothing against cats. I actually kind of like cats, but we never had a cat when our kids were growing up, simply because my wife's father was allergic to them, and we did not want to have any reason for him to not visit us, so we just never had a cat. But my kids, now my son at least, he had 2 cats for a while, and then one cat adopted a different family, and they just got one. But this video is going to be mostly about dogs. I want to start off by telling you that I had dogs growing up, probably 3 or 4 different ones over the years, and I never really got much into them because I never knew how to deal with them. And that's one of the things I'm going to tell you in this video, and I bet you I'm going to tell you some things in this video that you never knew about dogs. Well, when I got married and had kids, and of course the kids started agitating for a dog, and I actually had a dog before we had kids. This was a hound dog. Her name was Melody. I was a band director at the time, so Melody was a good name, we thought, for a dog at the time. I got to tell you this story. I got a call from one of my students and said, it was on a Saturday, and she said, my mom says, we've got something for you, and can you meet us at the band room? So I drove about 20 minutes north to the high school band room where I was the band director, and the student and her mom came up, and they gave me a dog. Now, you know, sometimes giving somebody a dog is really not a gift at all. It's kind of a burden. But this was a hound dog, and their dog had obviously had puppies, and they were looking for how could they get these puppies adopted out, and they gave me this one dog, a female puppy. You know, most puppies are cute, but I've got to tell you, as a puppy, Melody was kind of ugly. She's gone now, so I'm not worried about hurting her feelings, but she grew up to be a very well-conformed hound dog. And a lot of people ask me, oh, do you hunt with her? Well, no, I didn't. But Melody she was a good pet. And whenever somebody would come to the door and knock, she'd start barking. We called her a doorbell hound. And she says, what? What's a doorbell hound? It's when somebody rings your doorbell, she barks. So she was a doorbell hound. But we had several people come trying to sell us things at the door, and I would hold on to Melody's collar, and she would be up there. She would kind of be lunging at them and barking, and the people who were trying to sell us something, they couldn't get away fast enough. So she earned her dog food with just that. And that's later on when we got moving. Matter of fact, when I was a band director, and then I stopped being a band director for a while. I sold real estate for a while, and then I went back into the Air Force, and my wife and I moved to Maine. And we took Melody with us. Well, she was kind of a short-haired hound dog, and we wondered how well she would do. And they sent me to a 3-month school, so we had to board her in a kennel in Bangor, Maine, while I went out to California for a 3-month school for refresher training in my airplane. And when we came back, this dog had grown undercoat in her fur, so it was really thick, and she was very well insulated. She was dealing with the snow very well. And the whole time we were there in Maine, she had no problem going out in the snow, and she loved to go out and run in the snow. And we would take her out in the car, and actually we had a van at the time, and just as soon as we would start moving, she'd start whimpering. And so we figured she just had to go out and take care of business, so we let her out, and she went out, and of course she took care of her business, but then she started sniffing around. She didn't want to get back in the van. And so we called her, and she pretended not to hear us. And so we started easing forward, and she thought this was great fun, so she started running along, kind of, if this was a van, she was just a little bit in front of it, and she loved to run. So we would go in that van, and she would run along the side of the road, and of course this was up in northern Maine where there's really no other car, so we weren't worried about that. She would run at 22 miles an hour for about a half a mile before she started flagging. And by the time she started really slowing down, panting, we would stop the van and open the door, and she would get in and she'd, that was fun. We'll do it again sometime. But that was one of the things about Melody. Now, see, that was something you never knew about a dog. Anyway, later on, we had other dogs, and I began watching Cesar Millan on the TV. He was the dog whisperer, and I learned a lot from Cesar Millan. And I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute. Meantime, my daughter she had grown up and she got married, and she and her husband had a dog named Zoe. And here's a picture of Zoe when she was young. She would run in circles around their backyard, and when she could detect somebody was walking by in the street outside, she would run around the backyard and jump up. It was like a 6-7 foot tall fence, and she could jump up so high her head would barely clear the top of the fence, and she could see the people, and she'd bark at the people, and she'd go down, she'd run around the yard again, and then jump again, and she would bark at the person again, and people just ignored her, but she was just having great fun. Eventually, Zoe got loose, and she was not spayed, and so she had puppies. Now, this is a picture of the puppies Zoe had, and I need to tell you about what my daughter did with these puppies. She wanted the people who were going to adopt the puppies to be able to name them. So she got 9 different colors of yarn, because there were 9 puppies, and she put 1 color of yarn around the neck of each dog as a very loose collar, and she would call them by the name: red, aqua, oatmeal, whatever, and that's what she called them. But she would play with these dogs every day individually as puppies. I wish I could find it. I spent 2 hours looking this morning, and I can't find it. I had a video of my daughter going out in her backyard, and she was just kind of running slowly, and about 5 or 6 of these puppies were just right after her, and they were just having the best old time. But what happened was these dogs got accustomed to being around humans. Now, people who are dog trainers, they have a word for getting dogs accustomed to being around humans a lot. I don't remember what that word is right now. Somebody remembers it, leave me a comment in the comment section down below and tell me what that word is. But when these puppies grew up to the point that they could be adopted, I know of at least 4 of them were adopted by people I know, and every single one of these puppies was a marvelous pet. The worst thing they would do is they would look up at you when you came, and they would lean on your leg and look up at you with this "pet me" expression in their eyes. And it was just amazing how every single one of those puppies, because I am certain of the time my daughter Shelley spent with them as they were puppies, every single one of them became just the most marvelous pet in the world. My son adopted 2 of them. They all look like labs. They had Chow in their bloodline. They were mixed, but they all looked like labs in their conformation. He adopted Rex and Molly. Now, Molly was the only brown puppy in the litter. All the rest were black. Oh, hello, puppy. Oh, what a good puppy. Rex was 90 pounds. Big dog. Smartest dog I have ever come across. This dog, you could tell him something twice and he would have it. And the next time you ask him to do that, pow, he was just right there with it. So Rex was one of the smartest dogs I have ever seen in my life. And I am so sad because Rex managed to get bit by a tick and develop Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and he died. And it just broke my heart. But Molly, she was a brown dog. She is one of the sweetest dogs you would ever want to see. And she's probably smarter than a bag of spinach, but not by much. I'm sorry, I didn't mean... It takes her many times of repetition before she learns something. So, dogs, they have, just like people, different levels of intelligence. Now, let's move on to what Cesar Millan was teaching that I learned that I never knew about dogs. And I think you're going to find this as interesting as I did. If you're into dogs at all, if you're still listening to this, that means you're kind of interested in dogs. And so I hope you'll find this as interesting as I did. Dogs interact with the world, with people, with their environment, with other dogs. They interact in a priority of senses. And the first thing, you could probably guess what the first thing that dogs use as their main interaction with the world, and that's odor. I've heard it said that dogs' sense of smell is thousands of times more sensitive than ours, and I can believe that because they can smell things that you and I just have no hint of smelling. We cannot control the scent of what we're doing with dogs, so that's not an issue, a sense that we can really work with dogs. But the second thing that dogs govern their actions by is energy level. Now, you have seen dogs that are calm and sedate, and you have seen dogs that are so hyper they just can't bother to think straight. Are you ready to go wild? And if you have had a dog, you have seen it happen that a dog can go from a calm and sedate state into a super hyper energy level in a half a second. If a dog gets into this super hyper energy level, you can't really get their attention unless you do something that gets their attention other than just yell at them. And we're getting into a second why yelling at them is just not effective. The third way that dogs interact with their environment is touch. Now, if a dog is starting to get into this hyper energy level, all you have to do is touch them. Just reach out and on their shoulder, you just give them a little tap like that. If you've watched dogs in a pack, there's a pack leader for dogs, and if a dog starts getting out of line and being rambunctious, the pack leader, they will get over and they'll just nudge them in the shoulder with their nose or in the hip with their nose. And this touch, if you've noticed it, when a dog begins to get into a hyper energy level, if you will touch them, it's kind of like they go, what? Oh, you want me to do something else? And it's like they wake up from this energy trance that they're in. So touch is a way to do it. Now, one of the things you need to understand, you should never, ever hit a dog. You should never cause them pain because that will breach your trust. It will breach their trust in you, and they won't be able to trust you like they did before. So never hit a dog. Never cause a dog pain. Sometimes you're just going to have to be more insistent than they are. You're smarter than your dog. Believe it or not, you are smarter than your dog. So if you want to train your dog, you just have to be more persistent than they are and just insist that they follow it with gentle persuasion and touch. Now, the first way they interact is with odor. The second way is energy level. The third way is with touch. Now, the fourth way that dogs interact with their environment and everything around them is with sight. When they see something, they can go after it. They can touch it. Dogs usually have pretty good vision, even though they're mostly colorblind. But how many of you have ever heard, "Oh, a squirrel"? That kind of reaction from a dog. They can see something, and immediately that will spark their energy level. So if you're out walking a dog and the dog all of a sudden goes, "Oh, a squirrel," and they start lunging, all you had to do is reach over and kind of touch them on their shoulder or on their hip, and you will hopefully be able to get their attention back away from that squirrel, and you're giving them a little correction. Now, I've heard Cesar Millan say that this is a mouth and these are teeth. So if you just do this on your dog's shoulder, then you're just nudging them with the nose. If you kind of pinch them with your fingertips, that's almost like a nip. And dogs that really want to discipline their pack, they will nip their pack mates, and it gets them into line. So be judicious in how you use that. Now, the fifth and last way that dogs interact with their environment is sound. Now, think about this for a second. Most people, when they interact with their dogs, what do they use as their first line of communication? They talk to them. Sometimes they yell at them. They say their name over and over and over again. We went and visited my wife's cousin in Wyoming a while ago, and he had a Brittany Spaniel poodle mix, I think it was, named Maple. And it was a white dog with maple-colored splotches on it. It was really a sweet dog, wonderful dog. But when the dog was misbehaving, this cousin's first line of communication with the dog was simply to yell the dog's name. Well, that's not the way the dog works. And while the dog was there, the dog kept jumping up in our laps, and of course the cousin would, Maple, Maple, get down, Maple. And I knew that the owner of the dog wanted the dog not to jump up on people, so when the dog started to get up, I just nudged it on the shoulder with my hand, and it got right down. The second time it tried it, I nudged it again, and it got right down. It tried it a third time. I nudged it again. It got right down. And you know what? After that, it wasn't trying to jump up on my lap anymore. But it would go over to the owner, and it would jump up on the couch and in his lap. So, the dogs, they're smart. They're not intelligent like people, but they are smart. They learn, okay, which side is my bread buttered on here? This guy over here, he won't let me jump up, but if I go over here with my owner, I can jump up and he won't really make me get down because I really can't hear what he's saying, or I don't want to hear what he's saying. But this is the way you interact with dogs. And it was very educational to me to learn this. Now, thinking about energy levels, if you are dealing with a dog that is really hyper, one of the things that Cesar Millan would do, he'd put on his roller skates. They're big wheel roller skates with the wheels on the outside, and he'd take the dog out for a run, and the dog would be able to run as fast as it wanted to, and Cesar could keep up with him on the roller skates because he didn't have to run that fast. And he would take the dog out and run it around the block a couple of times, and at the end of this period, the dog would be totally worn out, but then the dog was ready to listen to instructions. So if your dog is hyper and won't listen to instructions, get them active. Let them get worn out, then they'll be ready to listen. So that's one of the things that I believe is really good as far as people interacting with dogs. Let's see, what else do we have here? One of the conclusions that I have come up with after dealing with dogs all these years and reading a lot of books about dogs, dogs love to please. Dogs have jobs. You've heard of dogs that are drug dogs. You've heard of the kind that will go find people who are lost. There are even cadaver dogs, and I've heard that cadaver dogs are very good at, they can even detect dead bodies that are 12 feet underwater, but it's not a pleasant experience because the dogs, when they find somebody, that somebody that they find successfully is dead, and so they can't really keep a dog in that career field very long. They have to get them in somewhere that they find a live person and it's successful, and the dog, oh yeah. Well, dogs, they love to please basically their master. They're human. They own the human and they love to please their human, but they have to know what that is. And it's very difficult. It takes a lot of time to train a dog in what that is. But if you're willing to spend the time and teach the dog what that is through gentle but persistent repetition, if the dog has the aptitude, the dog is going to absolutely love it. And of course, when they do a job, they love to play. So you can get them a knotted rope and then pull on it, play tug of war. You can throw them a ball or a frisbee or a nylabone or whatever it is. The dogs also love to play, and the play is their reward. Sometimes a treat is their reward, but they like play as much as they like a treat. All right, what else do we have? I'm looking over here at my computer where I have these talking points that I can not forget what I wanted to say in this vlog post. And the next point is having a dog is good practice for having kids, because I promise you the dog will drive you up a wall. And you got to learn to deal with the dog, not hit the dog, not scream at the dog, motivate the dog. And if you can train yourself in the dog, you're going to be much more prepared for dealing with kids when the kids come along, because you don't want to hit kids. You don't want to yell and scream at kids. You don't want to make them feel bad. You want to build them up. You want to educate them. You want to provide them with opportunities. And if you have a dog first, you can kind of teach yourself these skills, and it's good preparation for having kids. Found that out through practice. Next point. This is the last point, and I think you're going to agree with me on this one. Dogs have no sense of yuck. It is so true. If you have ever seen a dog that's out walking and they find a pile of something, something revolting. What do they? They don't want to avoid it like you and I do. They want to go roll in it. So it could be a dead animal or something even worse. They want to go roll in it, and they come up to you. Aren't I smelling great? Oh, great. Thanks. Now you got to have a bath. Ooh, a bath. So dogs have no sense of yuck. They will see something on the ground. They're going to eat it. They have no sense of yuck. It could be, well, I'm not even going to speculate that. I want to keep this as a family video. But you can imagine what some of the yucky things are that they could find, and they will just scarf it down in a moment. And they have no sense of yuck. One of my very favorite quotes from the Pulitzer Prize-winning humorist Dave Barry is from one of his books. He said, "One of the rules of being a dog is if something falls on the kitchen floor, eat it immediately. If it turns out not to be food, you can always throw it up later." I just thought that was hilarious. Well, anyway, that's all I've got for you in this vlog today. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, give me that thumbs up. Always leave me a comment down in the comment section below so I know how you like this one. Leave me some suggestions for future videos. If you want to send me a private message with a suggestion for a topic or a criticism for this video, if you want to just have a comment for me, go to www.davidstutorials.com, click on the contact button up in the upper right hand corner. I guess that would be up there, wouldn't it? And that'll drop down a menu and you will see vlog contact or whatever it says. Click on that and you will be able to send me a private message, and I will possibly use that in a future blog topic. So anyway, take care everybody. Don't forget to subscribe and then hit that bell icon, and YouTube will notify you the next time and every time I post a new vlog post right here on David's Tutorial. Have a wonderful day and take care.